Hello, Extension Writing Group. This is Miss Couchy. I am super excited to have you guys all in this special writing group, and I'm looking forward to working with you over the next few weeks on your writing. Now, the way we're going to work is that I will make a video for you to get you started on the Monday morning. So always look out on Monday morning for a special upload for our extension writing group. Obviously, it will be assigned to you, so it should pop up in Seesaw on Monday mornings. And if you can't find it, then just send me a message and let me know, and I will source it for you. So Monday morning, you'll have a task to do, a task to get started on, and it's not a task that we're going to finish in one day. So the reason why we're going to be able to produce some really great writing out of this class is because we're going to be working on it continually throughout the week. So you're going to start a task today, which is also going to be something that you're going to work on tomorrow for the Tuesday. If you finish yours and you're happy with yours on Monday, then there's nothing to do on Tuesday. But you can spend the 2 days working on it if you want. On Wednesday, you need to have your work ready to share with the group. We're going to have a session together. I'll give you the WebEx time and meeting. We're going to have a discussion. We're going to share what each of us has done, and then we're going to go back and continue to do some more writing before your work is due on Friday. So you only submit once on the Friday. So instead of submitting lots of little things over the week, you're going to submit one big thing, one really good, excellent quality piece of writing on the Friday instead, and we'll have all week to get it really great and to really work on developing some of those writing skills. So this is the first week of our extension writing classes, extension writing week 1. So our learning intentions for this week is we're going to be working on creating the mood by making intentional choices with the words that we add to our writing. So we know that great authors spend some time considering the language they use, and the language they use is very purposeful. They think a lot about how to really get the reader to visualize where they are. We want to put our readers into the location. We want them to feel what's going on. We want them to view things from this character's point of view and really make them feel things, because that's how you know you're a great writer, is you can make your audience feel things. But that doesn't come easy, because we need to be very considerate of the mood we're trying to create for the audience by using thinking about the words that we choose and making those intentional choices. When we use the phrase intentional choices, we're talking about really considering what word we choose. And when we meet on Wednesday, we can give each other feedback on this and see if it's creating a mood, and give each other feedback on these intentional choices that we've made, and maybe even make suggestions to each other and say, oh, I really love the way you've used the word rancid in this paragraph, but perhaps this word would be better, and we can give each other some feedback. Our success criteria is that we want to be able to improve. So I can improve my sentences by using noun group phrases and verb group phrases and prepositional phrases. And we're going to use new words and extended vocabulary to help my writing sound better. We'll talk about what these noun group and verb phrases and prepositional phrases are over the next few slides. But yeah, we're going to think a lot about the vocab that we use, because that also creates an intentional choice. And we might even start off with some vocab, and then by the end of the week, really have thought about the words that we're using to create mood, and hopefully make a lot of changes. I'm hoping your paragraphs change a lot during the week as you add to them and make them better and more interesting. So we're having a look at expanded noun phrases. We have the example here that we've got lots of, which is a determiner. On the next slide, we're going to have lots of examples of determiners, but basically they're just the sort of starting point, like the, and, lots of. So something to get the sentence started. They're used to introduce a noun and specify which one or how or many. In the middle, we have our adjectives. Obviously, we know what adjectives are, so they're the describing words, and we're going to think very, very carefully about which adjectives we choose to describe our nouns in our paragraphs. We have our noun, which is the object. Here's an expanded list, so I can give you a screenshot of this if this helps, because it has a long list of determiners, a long list of, I suppose, more considered adjectives than just the yummy that we saw on the previous slide. So really trying to push our vocab and make us use words perhaps that we weren't familiar with, and really have a go. Take risks with the words that you choose. Use different words, use unfamiliar words, and really push yourself to have some interesting vocab that's not just the ice cream was cold, the ice cream was yummy, the ice cream was sweet. We really push ourselves to think of what best words could describe the ice cream. We've got our nouns, which could be places, could be items, could be characters listed in there. And our prepositional phrase is describing where we are. So you can see in that example, we've got the river, near the town, in the water. That gives us our location. So we're going to use these expanded noun phrases, thinking about prepositional phrases and thinking about verb phrases as well. This is our inspiration. This is the thing we're going to be using as a visual prompt, so something to get us thinking over the next week. You are going to start by writing a paragraph for me, and you might think, yeah, paragraph easy. It's not going to be quite as easy because we're going to be making very intentional choices with our words in order to make this paragraph some of the best pieces of writing we've done. So what I want you to do is write a paragraph describing this alleyway. I don't want you to introduce any characters. I don't want your person to go anywhere. I don't even want to hear about any people yet. It is purely a description of what you see, hear, smell in this alleyway. Use the picture. Have this picture in front of you. I will give you a copy of the picture in your Seesaw post as well, so that you have that with you to look at. Now remember, we are trying to create mood. So we need to think about how our character, who we're not going to introduce yet, but we imagine ourselves standing in this alleyway and how it would feel to be there and what's happening with our senses. We don't want to say the alley was cold. We don't want to say the alley was wet. We do want to use some much more considered words to really think about the emotion that the character is going to feel standing by themselves in this cold, wet alley. Doesn't mean that we can't say it's wet, but we just need to think about how our sentence is going to be formed to really spark that emotion in the reader. Because remember, our writing is always for the purposes of entertaining the reader. So I really want to draw the reader in and make them want to keep reading and find out what's going to happen. I want to be intrigued by this alley. I want to feel like I'm really there. I want you to really think about how you're going to describe it to me. Let's look at an example. I'm going to come back to that one actually. So this is an example of someone who is describing the alley. In the dim light that eases through the narrow gap lies the alleyway. It is the underworld of any town, gloomy and unpleasant. The vines that crawl up windowsills and the crumbling plaster that envelopes the old stone bricks appear romantic at first, but become daunting as the sun sets behind the skyline of chimneys. Darkness is lurking in every corner. Inside the labyrinth of narrow passages and dead ends. Litter is dumped on the street, and birds are nesting amongst the sprawling rot. Suddenly, a muffled, indistinct scream is heard from behind you. The streetlights flicker off, and you're left with nothing but the orchestra of the urban night playing its eerie song. So the author has made some very intentional choices with the words that they've used to try and create a mood within the reader, to try and make us feel like we're there. They moved beyond the alley was dark, I was cold. They're using words like, if we have a look down at this bottom one, it doesn't say that the alley was noisy, but they've used the word orchestra as a very intentional choice. So we know that an orchestra is instruments like what Miss Foreman plays in the music room. So why are they likening that to an alley? So they're saying that there's an urban night is playing its eerie song. So they've made some very intentional choices there about the use of orchestra. There's so many noises, and you can hear them all together. There might be sirens, there might be a cat making noise, or some rats in the bins or things like that. So they all come together to make an eerie song. I like the way that they've structured this sentence up here about the light oozing. So this word oozes through the gap. When we think of oozing, we kind of think of slime, but they're using it in the context here of the light to show the way that the light is coming through perhaps some larger buildings on both sides. Gloomy and unpleasant is probably very intentional choices. And we like the way it's used with the underground of the town. This middle bit is interesting because it says that the litter is dumped on the street and birds nest in the sprawling rot. So it gives you that image as a reader of lots of perhaps rubbish bags and things being, there might be bins around, but then there's rubbish bags on the floor and they've been ripped open and there's birds jumping around in there. And it gives us that image in our mind. And, I would probably even, if I was the author of this particular paragraph, I'd probably even add to it and talk about the smells. Speaking of which, when we're thinking about our alley, and we're looking at the picture and we're really trying to picture ourselves in this alley, we don't want to just rattle off a whole lot of different adjectives. We don't want to say the alley was cold and dark and wet and grimy and smelly, because that doesn't evoke much emotion in the reader and it doesn't really make us feel like we're there. So we need to have some really strong sentences where we have a determiner, perhaps a or the, look at the list, a really interesting adjective like rancid, like narrowing, like ear-piercing, to describe our nouns of cat, buildings, and sirens. And then think about an interesting prepositional phrase which tells us where it's happening or where it is. So these sentences say, a rancid cat runs out from between the bins. The narrowing buildings stretch into the sky. An ear-piercing siren can be heard in the distance. So these sentences are really make us feel like we're there, really evoking emotion. So now it's your turn. You are going to write a paragraph for me. I think it would probably be a pretty decent paragraph. It might take up a third of a page if you were going to handwrite it. You don't need to handwrite it. I'm happy for you to type it straight into Word if you would like, because you will need to share it with us on Wednesday. So what does it look like? We've got the tall buildings, we've got the rubbish bin, we've got the rain, we've got it's dark and that there's no lights. So look at the picture and think about which things are important enough to mention that you want to draw us to. What does it smell like? Is there cats running around that are smelly? Is there rotten food? What does it sound like? Is it really quiet? Maybe it's eerily quiet. You would think that there would be more noise, or maybe the noise is very muffled off into the distance of people talking, and perhaps there's sirens. I would love for you to also, which the author of that example didn't really do, is also just talk about the emotions as well. We are going to add a character to this later in the week. I don't want you to introduce anyone. I'm happy though if you would like to say about the emotions this image of the alley is bringing up. So if there was a character, they'd probably feel scared or anxious. Okay, so it is your task to write a descriptive paragraph describing the alley in the picture. Do not introduce any characters yet, although you can say I. If you want to say I moved away or I was anxious, I'm quite happy for you to do that. I just don't want you to say who the character is yet, because that's our second part. Only describe what you see, hear, smell, and feel. Monday and Tuesday, you're going to work on your paragraph, making sure that you have reflected on your word choice. My suggestion is that you have a go writing it, leave it for a bit, come back to it, and then have another go at really considering what words you're using. Come to Wednesday's live session with your paragraph. We will share and refine what we have. Wednesday, we will add our second paragraph where we will introduce our character. Wednesday session will be at 11:30. Oh, gee, I did choose a time with me, Miss Couchy, in the WebEx. Link is there. And then we will add to the next bit, and submission is on Friday. I'm around at school on Monday, so please just shoot me through a message if you're not sure what to do, and I can help you out, or I can help give you some examples to get you started. Very, very excited to have you guys in this group, and I look forward to reading your paragraphs with you on Wednesday.